Hi everyone, I'm attorney Aiden Durham with 180 Law Co. in Denver, Colorado, and you're watching All Up in Your Business. This episode of All Up in Your Business is going to be all about transitioning from a DBA to an LLC. If you're operating a business under a DBA, which may also go by a trade name or a fictitious or assumed name, if you're operating under a DBA as a sole proprietorship, there may come a time when you decide it's time to be official. I want to operate as an LLC now. There's a lot of reasons to do this. Operating under just a DBA as a sole proprietor, it opens you up to a risk of personal liability. By just using a DBA, you personally are liable for any debts or liabilities of your business. But if you want some personal liability protection, if you want your own personal bank accounts, your house, your personal assets to be protected from your business's liability, then you may want to transition to an LLC instead of doing business as a sole proprietor under a DBA. Now, transitioning from a DBA to an LLC is really similar to just starting an LLC from scratch, except for a few exceptions. So step number one in transitioning from a DBA to an LLC is to form the LLC. You would do this by filing articles of organization with your state, with the Secretary of State in whichever state you want to form the LLC in. Now, this is where it's a little different for DBAs versus just if you're starting an LLC from scratch. If you have your DBA registered with your state, you might need to withdraw or dissolve that registration before you file the articles of organization to create the LLC. The reason for this is many states, their systems have a way of matching names to know that if this entity's name is identical to this one, they don't want two names that are the same in their system, so they won't allow you to register the LLC. So if you have a trade name registered or a DBA registered that is the same name that you want to use as the LLC, you might need to withdraw that trade name registration or the DBA so the name is now available for the LLC. So this is going to vary state by state. Every state does it a little bit differently, but depending on the way your state does it, if you want to do business under the same name as your DBA for your LLC, you're most likely going to need to get rid of the DBA first so the name is now available for the LLC. Some states also allow you to just kind of convert a DBA into an LLC. Colorado doesn't do this, so I'm not very familiar with it. But if your state does allow this, then you can probably skip that step about withdrawing the DBA first and just do that conversion from a DBA to an LLC. Now, if the LLC name is going to be different than the name that you've been doing business under, the DBA that you've been using, then you don't really need to worry about withdrawing it first. But you do want to dissolve or withdraw that DBA after you form the LLC. If nothing else, it's just an extra expense to renew it whenever your state requires, and it's really not necessary if you're not going to be doing business under that name anymore anyway. So that's step number two. If you are doing business under a different name than your DBA, after you've filed the LLC, then you want to go back and withdraw or dissolve that DBA registration from the first one. Step number three is to get an EIN from the IRS. An EIN is an employer identification number or a tax ID number. It's like the Social Security number for your LLC. The IRS doesn't require that a single member LLC have an EIN, so that part's optional, but many banks are going to require the EIN if you want to open a business bank account for your LLC anyway. So you might as well just get the EIN. So that's step number three. Step number four in transitioning from a DBA to an LLC is to prepare your operating agreement. Now that your LLC is formed with your state and you've gotten that tax ID number from the IRS, the next step is to get your operating agreement. Not every state requires an operating agreement, but even if your state doesn't require it, We have a lot of case history and a lot of legal precedent that tells us that it's still a good idea to have one, even if it's not required. If you're doing the LLC for the purposes of protecting your personal liability, the operating agreement is a vital part of that personal liability protection when you're operating as an LLC. Step number 5 of transitioning from a DBA to an LLC is to open new accounts or change your existing accounts. Any existing accounts that you have open, whether it be bank accounts, vendor accounts, any registrations that your business had with local or state government agencies, all of those accounts used to be between you as a person because you were doing business under a DBA as a sole proprietor. Those accounts used to be with you, but moving forward, we want those accounts to be with the LLC. So whether this means changing your business bank account so it's the LLC who's the account holder, or you might need to create a new bank account under your LLC, and then changing any of those other vendor accounts or other registrations with other parties, you want to make sure those relationships and those accounts are of the LLCs and not yours personally. And then finally, step 6 in transitioning from a DBA to an LLC is to assign contracts as much as possible. You've most likely signed a contract or two as a sole proprietor while you're doing business under your DBA. You've probably signed some contracts, whether it's for service providers to you or for your customers or clients. Those contracts were between you personally and the other party, your service provider or your customer. But now we want them to be with the LLC and that other party. So with any existing contracts that your sole proprietorship has, if the contract permits you to assign it to somebody else, then you can assign your interest in that contract to the LLC. So the contract is now with the LLC and the other party rather than you. Otherwise, if there's a term in your contract that prevents you from assigning it, then you'll want to just wait until your existing contracts expire, or once you can renew them, make sure every new contract that's coming up, any renewals or extensions of contracts, moving forward, every contract should be between the LLC and the other party rather than you personally. So if you can't just assign your existing contracts, you might need to wait until they terminate or until they expire, so then you can then renew them or contract again under the name of the LLC. And that's really it. Aside from the issue of withdrawing the DBA and then assigning your existing contracts and changing your existing accounts, there's really no difference between transitioning to an LLC and just starting an LLC fresh. The biggest thing that you want to keep in mind is that anything that you did prior to forming the LLC, you want to make sure it's now with the LLC moving forward. So accounts and contracts moving forward, you want to make sure those are with the LLC. And then now that you are operating as an LLC, you also want to make sure you're doing everything that you can to uphold that limited liability protection. If you're interested in learning more about that and how to avoid piercing the corporate veil, check back to one of my older videos on avoiding the risks of the single member LLC. That's got a lot of good tips on how to keep up that limited liability protection that the LLC gives you. That's all for this episode. If you're in Colorado and are interested in transitioning your DBA to an LLC, feel free to contact me. My phone number and email are below. Make sure you give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next episode of All Up in Yo Business. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Aiden Durham, and I'll see you next time.